welcome to our podcast show called How to Help Small Business Win Corporate Clients. And I'm your host, Sandra D'Souza. I'm also the founder of Ellect. And today we have two very special guests from Vebiz Consulting. We have Stuart Smith and Robert Jones. So now to get started, instead of me describing, your profiles and what you do, I might just kick this off with Robert to tell us what is it that you do and what sort of services you provide.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. Stuart and I run a business called Vebiz, and it's based on providing customer service in helping people do predominantly grants. We do help people in as many ways as possible in other things, but most of our work is in accessing government grant programs. The two predominant grant programs that we access are the Research and Development Tax Incentive and the Export Market Development Grant. There are many other grants that we've helped with, and from time to time we're asked to do something special. We believe that we work pretty well with clients because we go back and we look after them. We make sure that clients are our priority. We have very long-term clients. We have quite a lot of clients we've had for many, many years who've even completed 8 grants on the export grant, or they've been with us doing R&D for the last 10 years. We like to think that we actually work pretty well together because we've known each other since, for 50 years or more. So it's been a bit of a journey.
Wow.
And we've hopefully developing a new push into helping as many more clients as possible. And Stuart?
So I'll just thank you, Robert. That was a really great intro to what you guys do, and the fact that you have these long-standing relationships with your clients tells me that you're not just about completing government grant application, that you are interested in helping them as much as possible and find ways of making their business I won't say you can't make them eligible, but certainly supporting them with the government grant process.
Well, the way we approach the grants is that we are using the grants to help develop their business rather than just doing the grants. It's more about how can we leverage those grants to help particular clients in particular ways to either grow their business or improve their profitability or get more out of something or go and find a new way of doing things. We see our value in being able to systemize and help the process of getting the grant, explain to the client what they actually need to get those grants, helping in the documentation, helping in the follow-up and the questions, and making the process pretty much as simple as possible for all the clients.
Well, that sounds great because I know how long and time-consuming these processes can be. So I'm actually now going to direct my next question to Stuart. In terms of, you all both know so much about government grants, but why don't we just go back to the beginning? So Stuart, my question is going to be directed to you with what Robert has just told us in terms of your expertise and what you guys do. Tell us actually a little bit more about the government grants, the way it works and how it works for business.
Yeah, government provide grants because they want to achieve a particular public policy position. So when you look at what grants are available, it's got to be to not only help your business, but it's got to help the government achieve what they're hoping to get out of it. Not just get more votes out of it, but actually achieve something. So if we look at the Export Market Development Grant, for instance, the purpose of that is that they want to see Australian companies exporting more goods overseas. That's good for our balance of payments. It's good for generating employment, generating tax revenue. So any of the government grants that you look at are not specifically tasked with making your business a better business. That should be the result of you actually helping the government achieve their public policy position. So it changes your thinking about why when you respond to a government grant, what you've got to keep in mind. And to keep in mind, there are also a couple of different types of government grants. There's the one where you've got to do the paperwork, you've got to do the work and meet the requirements. And then there are also government grants where it's a merit-based, where you need to put in an application and you're up against everybody else that might be competing for that particular amount of money that's available, and you've got to have a better application. So where's a business work with businesses across that spectrum, helping them get their paperwork right, making sure that they get everything they're entitled to. And at the same time, we work with clients to help them write their applications and understand what an application should be targeted to, so that you've got the best success and a higher merit than anybody else that's competing.
Okay, and then I guess in the areas of focus for the government policy, do they look at what type of businesses or areas do they look at?
There's no one answer to that. I always use the unfortunate position of a fish and chip shop owner or a plumber is unlikely to just go out and get a grant because they run a cafe or because they happen to provide a very valuable service. At this point, I would say to people also with a government grant, it's not only the person that receives the money from the government, but when they get it, they've got to spend it somewhere. So if this is a grant to improve water retention in Sydney, a whole lot of householders might get the grant. But guess what? It's the plumber that has to install it, and it's the plumber that has to get paid. So at the end of the day, everybody in business should be looking at what government support exists, either for themselves, for their customers, or for their suppliers, because as part of that supply chain, they should be able to participate in whatever assistance program is going around.
So you're talking about businesses that are more into innovation type of thing, and
businesses that are particularly into innovation, governments are very keen to support. Reason for that is that research and competitive advantage comes from innovation. Innovation begets more employment. It improves productivity, which again creates more employment and more productive employment. So anywhere that anyone is innovating, whether it be a product or a process or a service, then there is more chance that the government will be there in some way to help support that process. And
then I guess that's great, Stuart. And then I guess with in terms of grants or businesses who are looking to expand to overseas market, could you tell us a little bit more about that? But do they also have to be innovative business to qualify for that?
A business to qualify for assistance where you might be exporting overseas, or you're looking to find markets overseas, that's the qualification, that you want to be marketing your product overseas. And the government provides support in a number of different areas. The major one that more business than any other in Australia over the last 50 years have participated in is the Export Market Development Grant. Now that's an assistance program that's been around since 1971. But also the government has an agency called the Export Finance Corporation. They will assist people that want to export. The wine industry, for instance, has a particular program just for wine exporters. Government is very keen to support people that want to export their product, particularly because of the benefits that it brings to the whole society in Australia.
Okay.
And it's not only the federal government; it's also state governments have their own particular programs where they target export and they target innovation, but they tend to be supportive and complementary to the main EMDG and R&D programs.
So you mentioned EMDG and R&D. Could you just for some of our listeners explain what those acronyms mean, please?
Okay, well, the Export Market Development Grant, or EMDG, subsidises the expenditures on marketing expenses overseas. It basically is a 50% refund on the eligible marketing expenditure, so it has to be export marketing.
Wow.
And that's then assessed, and there are up to 8 years worth of claim that you can make. Of course, there is a success metric involved in that as well. So the Export Market Development Grant is Austrade's vehicle for helping Australians to export.
Well, I guess that fits very nicely with the government policy that for the Australian businesses to be able to enter in overseas markets. Would that be accurate in describing that?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Many small Australian businesses have used the Export Market Development Grant to actually become quite successful overseas businesses. Some of our fashion clients, lots of food clients in the science and area, some of the more innovative companies have used the Export Market Development Grant to have worldwide platforms. They've had good planning, they've used the thing well, along with, of course, the management of the process. Yeah. We see our role as trying to help them in the best way to achieve those results.
Well, I see that. So if we delve into a little bit more of the EMDG grant, now that we can use the acronym, thank you for explaining the grant. Basically, these businesses would have been spending the money anyway to go and explore the overseas markets. And what the government is essentially doing is giving some of that expenditure money back to them to help them to even further grow, further expand to the market. Would that be accurate?
Right. That's right. But they also offer some structure to the way that export marketing expenditure is carried out, so that they recognise particular areas of expenditure which are believed to be, structured and valuable, so that it's managed well and the money's spent in the areas that will be effective.
Oh, great. And so, I mean, and this question can be Stuart or Robert. So our listeners are trying to win corporate clients, and the corporate clients doesn't have to be just in Australia. They can be overseas corporate clients, and this grant can really support the marketing efforts to, yep, sorry.
In that case, if you're looking for corporate clients and you want to show that you have a track record and success, and you actually have export success on your CV, that's a very good reference back to a corporate client
True.
Who will want to deal with you.
That's true.
Because you've been through the process.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And I believe that there's also, we talked about innovation, we talked about export. There is from what I understand, a business productivity grant. Would that be accurate? Yep.
Yes.
Talk about that one.
This is another long-standing grant that Oz Industry, different to Austrade, Oz Industry is the government agency that manages this, and it has a threshold that you have to meet to get into the program, which is 1.5 million of turnover. So our small business are aspiring to that, and businesses that are growing quickly will meet that mark. What that means is that they are able to enter the program to improve their productivity. The whole policy purpose of the business productivity grant is to increase the business's productivity, regardless of what the actions are that they might need to do. That may mean that they need to merge with another company. They may need to import products instead of making them at home. It's really not about anything other than that business becoming more productive. Productive business in the end engages more people to work for it. The value of it is that a company that has issues that need to be improved to improve their productivity often balk at the fact that it's going to cost them money. If you've got something wrong, it's going to cost money to fix. The government comes in and they will give you a grant that will cover half of the cost up to $20,000. So it's not a huge amount for a lot of companies, but it does prompt them to really look at their business, do a SWOT analysis of their business, do a diagnostic on it, and prioritize the actions that will really have the most effect so that they get value for money. This way, the government gets value for money, the client gets value for money, and in the end, the whole Australian economy benefits because we have more productive businesses.
That's fantastic.
Any of our clients or non-clients, people that ring us and call, want to have about what's available, more than happy to put them into that, because we know that a client that is growing, whether they're a client today, will eventually come back and want to do more R&D and will want to do more export marketing. So the productivity is really a program that can kickstart a business. Once it's already got traction, it's got $1.5 million of revenue, but it can really help it take it to the next level.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great program for businesses, and like you said, you know, especially our listeners, are they trying to win corporate clients? They need to make sure that they're able to deliver the services or products, and this productivity grant would be a good way for them to utilize that to enhance their business model or the business infrastructure.
The breadth of what you can do in terms of getting corporate clients is actually quite interesting. We're going back some time, we had a client that used that grant to develop their quality system to actually get the ISO 9001 quality standard.
Yeah.
As soon as that, and there was something I was thinking about, but it was expensive, but having gone through the diagnostic of where their business needed to go, and then having the funding of that supplied, that then catapulted their business into overseas markets. The quality system allowed them to avoid a whole lot of other questions if they didn't have it, and it actually gave them a big competitive advantage in going into the Asian market, that they had a global standard quality system in place.
That's
and
fantastic.
It was a good example of not only of how this program works, but how quality systems and standards are supposed to work in the global marketplace.
Yeah, it makes them, like you said, competitive with other businesses, larger businesses, so to speak. And so,
Yeah.
I guess with all that in mind, do both of you, either of you, would like to share some tips on, you know, for small businesses, for our listeners? What any tips that you'd like to get them thinking about government grants?
I'll start off with government grants. As I said, there's two types. I'll let Rob talk about the entitlement grants, or what we call entitlement, the R&D and the EMDG. But for the merit-based grants, where you're going to be competing, it's always better to have a project looking for the government money than to see a grant and think, oh, there's some money that's available. I wonder what I can do that I might be able to do that, because I'm in that particular industry sector. You need to approach a government grant with a passion to succeed, like it was any other customer. You're really trying to sell your idea to the government, and you don't want to do it half-hearted and just hope it sort of wins. The same as you don't approach any other customer, any other corporate client with, I hope they like me. You do everything you need to do. So they can often be large sums of money, and therefore there is work to do. So it's not as though it's a handout because you're running a good business. You need to work at it. So I always say it's better to have a project chasing money than seeing the money and hoping to come up with a project for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say that so what we do is we help clients. It's a partnership that we have to have. We help them write it. We help them understand what the assessor of this grant is trying to answer. So it's not always what you want to tell them. You've got to work out what they want to hear rather than what the client wants to actually tell them sometimes. and getting them to focus on that and not just on their business, but why it's going to be better for whatever public policy position it might be. So that's why when we work with clients, it needs to be in their language. Whether we write it, we write it, but it needs to be in their language. And that's why the client passion has to come out when they talk to us about it, and then we have to transfer that. So that comes through the document when it goes forward to whatever minister, whatever bureaucrat will be assessing the grant against everybody else. But Rob can talk about
on that particular point, Stuart. I've often found that we sometimes actually intuitively know what some grant is looking for, and it's not actually written in the documentation, because we know what their goals are by just completing the work according to what the merit criteria say should be. Doesn't get you there without having that insight into what they're trying to achieve.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, just before you finish that, Robert, this is where it's quite interesting. You're saying that it can be tempting to look at a government grant and go, oh, I want to be part of that bucket, but it should be the other way around, is you focus on your business, and if your business and your passion where you want to achieve in your goal, it makes you eligible for that grant, that's when you go for that grant.
Well, that's very true. You actually have to think that your goals are aligned with the goals of the grant writers or the policymakers, so that you're aligning your business with theirs.
And that's the first step. And then the second step, from what I can understand, is, which is what you guys are very good at, is to the language in the grant application is important, and so you capture the passion of the business owners and put it into a language that the I don't want to call them bureaucrats. I mean, let's say assessors.
You're right. You have to tick the boxes that they want ticked.
Yeah, and that so they can understand and do the work that they're supposed to do, and that is the compliance component.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now on the compliance, if you would like to know a bit about the non-competitive entitlement grants, that's an interesting word. Not really entitled.
Yes, I know. Entitlement was a very bad word in government.
are either eligible for some grant or they are not eligible. The money that they're receiving is for eligible activities or it's not. So we have to make sure that we ensure that the client's activities and what they're asking money for is in fact eligible under whatever grant it is. The R&D scheme is an eligibility grant. It's not competitive. The Export Market Development Grant is an eligibility grant, although it is restricted in its funding. And there are other grants around that are eligible grants, which you basically meet the compliance requirements and you're entitled to them. Is that about right?
Yeah. So I think what we mentioned earlier is that you're going to spend the money and that is suitable for the overseas market, and the grant is supporting you with that compliance and that entitlement.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
There is no point spending $1 overseas to get 50 cents back on the export market grant. You need to be spending the money overseas because it makes a good business decision. And then the export market grant or the research and development grant become an added incentive. What they do is they allow you to accelerate the marketing that you might have been doing, because you're getting some back. It means you can either spend more in the year that you're actually doing it, or you can extend the period of time you're actually going to spend marketing. So if you have a fixed budget, both the R&D incentive and the EMDG extend that budget for you. They don't replace the budget for you. They only extend it for you. And as I said, in EMDG, there are so many cases over the last, as I said, 50 years of businesses that will testify just how important it was for them to actually break into an overseas market. And that's whether they were selling intellectual property, whether they were selling goods that they made, or whether they were selling services that they could carry over and do the work over there themselves.
Okay. So
and as we mentioned before, doing these grants enhances your ability to deal with corporate clients because you've been through the accreditation on a lot of aspects of your business.
Yeah.
They've actually done checks to make sure that you're eligible for these things, which are often the things that corporate clients are looking to certify as well.
That's very true. And that, I think, is the grant application process helps you and enhances your business or position your business to be ready for corporate clients in a way as well.
But it's also more than that. If you're developing an R&D program with the goal of defining a new product or a new service or something that's innovative, then that by its nature is something that's of value, which you ultimately should be aiming to market to the bigger clients so that your business becomes bigger. So it's a corporate win-win.
I like it. Thank you. So we're actually now getting to the end of the show. But before we go, I know that you have a special offer for our viewers and listeners who are listening to the show. Who would like to share that with us?
I'll be Santa Claus. Look, we're very happy to work with Ellect, and is particularly with what Ellect is trying to achieve. Not only with this podcast, but with their complete gender equality principles. And so for anyone coming through the Ellect website, and you'll find our business details on the Ellect website, we offered to Ellect that we would give them some sort of referral. They would prefer to see, and we would prefer to see, that there's actually a discount provided to anybody that comes through the Ellect website and uses our services. It's probably a good time to point out that our services work on a success basis. So whether you're doing whatever sort of grant you're doing, they will be based on, our fee structure is such that it's based on the success of the grant, not for the so you'll only have to pay when you get the government money.
Wow. That's great, because then you know that you're committed to it, committed to the success of the application.
Very.
That's great. So I'll just quickly recap, and that is a very generous offer for if anyone engages you through the Ellect marketplace. And what happens, they're successful, but they know that they've come, that they've come through the Ellect marketplace, that they will get a 10% discount on your fees. And the fees that you offer are success-based fees, so that there's nothing up front, and you're committed to, when you take them on, that means that you are committed to the success of the application. That's wonderful.
That's right.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. And I can see why you have many years, I guess, of customers who have stuck by you, because you truly, I can tell that you truly believe in helping your customers and helping businesses, and in a way also supporting the government to find great businesses that they can offer the grants to. I'm looking at it that way, in a very positive way. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. No, they hold an important place in making sure that government. We hold an important place, I guess, as well as the clients, making sure that governments will always give grants away. Politicians will always try and win votes, and so the idea is to make sure that the society gets the most value out of those, that they're actually going to the people that should get them, and clients the people that should get them.
That's great.
And of course, making sure that our clients are doing the right thing by the government.
Yeah, very good point. Well, that's it. Thank you for such an insightful interview or podcast. And I really appreciate the knowledge that you've given us to our listeners and our viewers. So this show will be on our YouTube channel, be on our podcast, so that, we get to as many people as possible who can watch the show. And I think on that note, thank you very much for your time, Stuart and Robert, for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. And everyone, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.